No, starting already? Well, not already. Starting. Yes, it's begun. And this should begin. And starting already? Yes, there we are. So we're here. Two slit stuff. So I just thought I'd go over some of what I tried doing. And, if you have suggestions about things to try that are simple, I'd appreciate it. All right, so this was just basically the slit. It's just a double slit cut out of a transparency film, and oh, well, I don't have one conveniently convenient, so too bad. Like a 35 millimeter slide, um, and there's the image of the slit. And so I can tell you what I have figured out and what I haven't. So anyway, the test this time was to try doing this on the very edge of the slit, that is the bottom of the rectangle. So the slit is taller than it is wide, and there's a double slit, and then there's a top and a bottom. So I tried doing the top edge of the slit, and what you can sort of observe is there's a lot more pattern that goes down than up. So the argument is the edge of the slit, say this is the edge, the bottom edge, and the slit's coming up this way. I'm just going to keep making this more confusing. I did it this way. Okay, so the top, here's the top surface, and the slit's coming down this way. The point is more light goes down through the opening, towards the opening, then goes around the corner. So the around the corner amount of light is the part going up, and the light going into the opening or across the slit, you could argue, is the light going down. And so the argument sort of is that when you have a slit, what's happening is more light goes towards the opening, out this way, than goes around the corner. So the light going, but for the band going this way, it's more this slit, and the band going that way would be more this other side, creates the band going this way. It seems there's a clear dominance difference. Many more photons go this way than go around the corner. That seems to be something observed here in these experiments. So you can sort of see that this is the top is just this little bit, goes up, and the bottom has a much deeper pattern that goes down. So these are just more pictures at different times, amounts of time, collecting more photons. Now, the other thing I figured out is this wavy stuff here is being created by the fact that the slit opening is a piece of transparent plastic. So these deformations are being created by differences likely in the thickness or in the chemistry of the plastic itself. So this is how the molecules of plastic, which are probably long molecules, this probably, well, you say this, the shape of the molecules, it might actually be an image of the molecular structure of the plastic. It might actually be that. It's not impossible. Well, maybe it is impossible. I'm just saying from an observation, you could say the plastic obviously has an unevenness in its structure. That would be the point. And that plastic gains its strength from the fact that it has to, in some way, create bonding. So it has to have molecules that are sort of tangled to be flexible and yet strong. So most flexible and strong things are usually made out of stringy molecules. That's sort of what I'm arguing. And that stringiness is revealed in this, is consistent with this pattern. So that would be the argument, that this is just revealing places where photons pass through the weave of the plastic intact, and where they don't pass through the plastic intact. obviously they don't arrive at the destination. So somehow they're not getting through. That's why there's this huge inconsistency or warping of the pattern. So in reconstructing the pattern, you could argue that a lot of these dark places should have bands in them. It doesn't really explain all the distortions, though. So I still haven't explained, I still don't understand exactly why there's as much waviness as there is, because you wouldn't think there should be that much. But that's, again, light refracting, so it means the light's going through more than one atom, perhaps, as it's going through the plastic, and so it's hitting multiple strands of plastic. Something like that. So moving forward. So just a different, amount of time, probably. So there's less detail. And I changed focuses and different things. So this is obviously not a very good image. So I don't know exactly what I did there to make it worse, but in some ways you get a different kind of detail. So I'll zoom in on some of that. But I don't remember exactly what this was, what I did differently. But you can clearly see that the amount of light going one way is completely different than the amount of light going the other way. And there's clearly pattern one way and no pattern the other way. So going towards the opening of the slit or away from going around the edge, pattern is created. Clearly, very little pattern is created going the other way. That seems a pretty solid description of the event. All right, now I put this is one layer of tape. So instead of using the bottom of the transparency where the image ends, I put a piece of tape on it instead. So, and I got quite different result, and then it doesn't have any consistency. There's slop going in both directions. It's kind of ambiguous. It's more like just the noise part. You can see the bands of light aren't as spread, the two slit pattern. And of course, the focus kind of sucks for whatever reason. Not sure of. But that will improve in the next series of images. All right. So again, it's trying just different amounts of time. And again, there's a lot of, noise, blur, and such that I don't know I don't know why it's there. So don't have any great explanation for that. All right. So I did start using the autofocus on the camera, which is probably a mistake. So anyway, but these patterns are quite interesting because you can see how much wider it is now. So this is with two pieces of tape. So one piece of tape didn't do much, except, I'll go back to one piece. So that's one piece of tape. And this is just adding a second piece of tape. You can see now the thickness of the double slit pattern has gotten much thicker. And you have now pattern going both ways pretty consistently. So there's a huge difference in the fact that now you've gotten two surfaces closer to each other kind of argument, and it completely changes what takes place in the pattern. Quite different. So it's essentially, as this looks, it's a rectangle opening now, and it's wider than, the double slit part is wider than the amount of opening up and down. And it's a very interesting effect. So what you see here is the little black mark going down is just a alligator clip that's holding the slide. You can sort of get the idea that the slide frame is blocking more light. Noise. The noise can't get through the frame, obviously. And it's not going through the opaque part of the slide, because that's why you don't see any great perfect division. This bar goes right across. So all of the light you're seeing has to actually go through the slits to get to where it's going to end up. So there's no light in this pattern that didn't go through the slits to get where it landed. Right. So, but you get a pretty good idea of that, and you can sort of see as you zoom in. Well, you'll probably see it better in the next image. But obviously the two slit pattern is spreading right to the edges, which means that light had this little bar over here is essentially on the cardboard frame of the transparency. So obviously that light had to go through the slits. It didn't go through the cardboard. So this obviously all this other light is doing essentially the same thing. It's light that went through both slits, and it's got these funny shapes to it because it's going through a transparency. So if I get rid of the transparency part and just use razor blades, I should at least get rid of the wavy lines that are being created by the plastic. Now, maybe the atmosphere itself will create some kind of distortion, but it'll be a lot less distortion than the plastic is creating, the clear plastic. Now, the weird part is it doesn't seem to create all that much distortion in the pattern, except this obvious weirdness, where you have this, this huge change in the size of these openings. The dark spaces got much darker pretty dramatically, which, isn't entirely right. Right word is correct, what you would expect. So again, these are all, so I just tried different f-stops, lens openings, and time exposures to just see if I get better or worse images. So there's the noise of the laser you can see going around. This part blocked off is probably being blocked off by me or the camera. So one of those two is causing this line here. I'm not far enough out of the picture when I'm hitting the camera button or something like that. Let's see, is there anything else dramatic in this picture? But you just get the idea. The pattern goes wider, a lot wider, and you get bars both ways, and more obviously better shaped when you create. So you have basically a single slit of tape with a double slit pattern behind the tape. So it goes through the single slit of tape first. So I should have just reversed it and see if there's a difference between which way it goes through, whether it goes through the double slit pattern first and then goes through the tape, or whether it goes through the single slit pattern first and then the tape. So I should have done the obvious of just reversing the slide. So I guess I'll have to do that next time, and we'll see if that makes a difference. So this is good for the purpose of really getting a good view of so this noise of the laser you don't see at all, unless you do a time exposure. So all this light isn't really, this is a very dim thing, and the time exposure is really what makes it possible to see all of this shape and all of this shape must be a manifestation of the structure of the plastic is creating all of these weird deformations and such. Just again, more of the same. It's a long exposure, probably 30 seconds for that one. That's why it's probably a little fuzzy. But interesting. Like I said, I don't know what to make out of it yet. I don't have any hard conclusions, so just thought I would show you what I have discovered, which seems to be relevant. So you can see here there's no evidence of the border of the transparency. So there's cardboard that should be blocking out all of this pattern. So all this pattern had to be created from going through the slit. It's not, obviously it's not the opaque part of the transparency is opaque. And so this light is light that goes through the slits and is scattered into these locations and put into these locations with obviously all of these little bar patterns superimposed. So all of the light that goes through is being affected by the double slit, clearly. in terms of its imposing its will on every photon. And that's why all of this light has lines. Because that's the last thing the light goes through is the double slit pattern. It first goes through the single slit, that kind of thing. And so we'll just keep going backward here, I guess. And I'll see if there's any reasonable or connected or in any way useful comments. And so this is, 2 pieces of tape still. And then we'll get to the, so this is a pretty good image of it. I mean, it'd be better if I had more, if I had it going up further to see the evenness of the up and down pattern, but, it's even, presumably. All right, and this is with just a single piece of tape. And you can see that I'm not getting anything clear at all. It's, it's kind of strange that the single piece of tape creates a very distorted image, and I don't know exactly why it did that. There's definitely pattern going both ways. It's not like the edge of the transparency created. It's not this, the piece of tape doesn't create the same pattern that the edge of the transparency did. The edge of the transparency created a much clearer this. So this is the edge of the transparency. And clearly this pattern going both ways, but very different pattern. So the pattern again going away from the surface is strong, and the pattern going around the corner is weak. So I think that's a sort of an important observation. Because intuitively you think the other way around. You think the light's being spread this way, when in fact it's being spread this way and this way. So I mean, the effect is the same. There's light going this way and there's light going this way, but it's being caused by the opposite effect. It's not doing the around the corner thing. It's doing the away reflection thing almost. It's almost like the getting reflected off the edge more than it's going around the edge. So that argument is made pretty visible in these images. I mean, this is a good image here. I mean, you clearly see the difference in the patterns. A little bit of stuff going up, but a lot of stuff going straight down around the corner. And not much, probably just because not enough light is going to these other locations to show more pattern going down. That's probably the reason there's less pattern going this way and this way and this way and this way. So there's just not enough photons being bent both ways. They really have to be bent both ways. Yeah. But quite a lot of irregularities, but not as much. You don't see nearly as much of the weirdnesses without the tape. So without that separation of the tape being in another surface, you get a different pattern than when you use the same material that the slit is made out of. So, what the hell is that? I guess that's the same thing, just so you do see all the irregularities there anyway. So maybe this is the better image of that edge. So I think that's what that is. Yeah. So that's the old photos of just so that's what the pattern looks like when it's not the edge. So you see how much narrower it is. So when it is the edge, you can see how it gets much thicker. And you do have this difference of much more light going away from the edge than going around the edge. Yeah, that's the key thing realized. And the second key thing realized is that these deformations are being created by the plastic, the transparent plastic. The clear plastic isn't clear enough. Essentially, it's not a very good transmission medium. And such. This is too bright. Still too light in here, but whatever. It'll have to do. All right, let's see if there's any comments, which there are none. I'll give you a minute or so, and then we'll just call it a day. And just, as I collect more information, I will provide it and such. That's all I can do, really. So, so no brilliant conclusions yet. Nothing that can prove that this wave nonsense is wave nonsense. But I'm just saying these are sort of indications of something else is going on besides this interference, two waves interfering thing. Because clearly there's this huge unevenness in, where the light's going. And especially in the single slit, this isn't evidence of two waves creating an interference pattern at all. Merely because you have another surface. I don't think there's a wave. I don't think waves can explain that. Because they would have to be symmetrical as they move out. They'd have to spread. They're not spreading both ways. They're only spreading one way. So why would the waves only spread one way? I don't think they'll have an explanation for that. Yeah. So, it might be a point from my side and such. So, let's see how many people are here. See whether it's any point in hanging on or not. Yeah, one viewer. That's amazingly bad. Okay, well, I guess it's a little too late on a Sunday, so I guess there's no point. All right, so till the next time and such, just a video. Not really a live room. Yeah, not really. Didn't really happen that way. Okay, till next time.